Hey everybody, welcome to the newest episode of The Bearded Gamer Show. As always, I'm your host with the great beard. Little shaggy right now. I'll make it better by next time. Chris Arnone. Alright guys, straight into good news, bad news. First up is a piece of some good news. Now, recently Capcom put out a brand new trailer for Resident Evil 6. Alright? Now, why am I seeing this as a lot of good news? You know, there's trailers that come out all the time. Well, they're talking about a whole lot of things to sort of reinvent the franchise. Now, you'll see in the trailer, especially if you go to, Capcom and look at the full thing, some familiar faces. Leon is in there, Chris Redfield, but they're changing a lot of things, trying to, breathe new life into the franchise. You can move while you shoot. There's going to be rolling, running, taking cover, brand new melee combat. They're really reworking a lot of things. And of course, to go along with that, I'm sure will be some more challenging, difficult, faster villains. For instance, they're showing off one enemy that can regenerate. You blow off an arm and it'll regenerate, but if you do significant damage to it, it'll actually mutate and regenerate. So it actually, you have to change your tactics that you use against the enemy. But yeah, it just looks like some good stuff. I've never been a huge fan of Resident Evil, partly because I just think there's no excuse for tank controls, and purists like to say, oh, but it's always been that way. Well, you know what? Sarah Jessica Parker's face has always looked like a foot. That doesn't make it good. That's just how it's always been. And so I think it's good that, finally Resident Evil's trying to step up and realize this is a different generation of games, different generation of gamers, and you need to change things and try to grow and advance the series. And I'm looking forward to that. November 20th. All right, some bad news. Well, Sony is going to be shutting down their PSP Digital Comics service. Now, personally, I don't really know a lot of people who use it, which is probably part of why it's going to get shut down. But for those who do use it, unfortunately, it will be going offline. Now, March 15th will be the last time there will be any new content on the service, and then you will be able to re-download any of your content you've already purchased through the end of the year. But after that, that's it, no more. Now, Sony is suggesting you can use the program Media Go to back up your content from your PSP to your PC. So any of those comics you have, re-download them if you don't have them, back them up to your PC so you can always have them, but the actual service will be going offline. Now, Sony does say they want to keep doing digital comics on other devices that are Sony. My guess probably, of course, is their tablets, which is, I'm sure, what's really killed off digital comics on the PSP. All right, some more good news. Now, some of you may have seen videos or read about the artifacts of Cyrodiil and Morrowind that are in Skyrim. They're actually beyond the edges of the map, and some industrious PC players, well, it's not really that industrious, you just got to use console commands, have walked beyond the invisible wall around Skyrim and kept walking all the way to the capital city, the imperial city of Cyrodiil, and a couple of locations in Morrowind. Well, now Bethesda's come out and explained why those are there. Now, some of us were wondering, oh, maybe they're planning some DLC in those places, that's why they're already there. Well, no. The real reason was because they have all these huge mountains in Skyrim that didn't exist in previous games, and they wanted to make sure if you went way up into this mountain and looked in that direction where, the Imperial City should be, you would actually, in the distance, see it. As you should, which, that's pretty cool that, if there's a clear day, you could actually see all the way into Cyrodiil or Morrowind. However, Bethesda's not ruling out the possibility that there could be DLC taking you into some of these old locations. Now, they're not built to scale in the game currently, but I'm sure that's something that can always be fixed. So that's why I think it's pretty good news. Not only the fact that they took the time and the attention to detail to make sure you could see properly through those distant vistas, but also the fact that they are now considering putting some DLC in those locations. All right, some straight-up news. I can't really qualify this as good or bad. Now, some of you may have heard that they are working on a Twisted Metal feature film, a motion picture in Hollywood. Well, now they have attached a writer-director to the project, and that is Brian Taylor. Now, this is the madman behind the Crank movies, which are just insane and crazy and so much fun and really cool movies. He's also the guy behind Gamer, which is okay. And that's kind of why I'm torn, because while Crank was a lot of fun and was really awesome, Gamer was all right. Well, he's also the co-director for Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance, which hasn't come out yet. but we got to hope it's better than the first one, which was just abysmal. It was just so bad. So, if this new Spirit of Vengeance is a good movie, especially on the directorial part, we may have indeed high hopes for this new Twisted Metal project. Okay, some bad news. Now, not surprisingly, it's been announced Mass Effect 3 will, for the PC, will not support a PC gamepad. Now, why I say this is not surprising? Well, pretty much no BioWare PC game has supported a controller in the past. The Knights of the Old Republic, the previous Mass Effect games, the Dragon Age games, Star Wars The Old Republic, even though it's an MMO, so that's no surprise. Now, why I say this is bad news, even though we should have seen it coming, is I just think this is ridiculous. Whenever you've got a game developed for PC that's also developed for consoles that have to use a controller, why don't you put in gamepad support? It just doesn't make sense. Now, some people like to argue and say, oh, but they make a different UI for the PC that's more PC friendly. Okay, fine, leave it in there. But make sure if I plug in a controller, it switches UIs. You've already developed a controller UI as well. To me, creating the UI is the hard part, not sticking in two different options for UIs. I'm just all about people should be able to play games the way they like to play games. Personally, I've been more of a console gamer for most of my life, and when it comes to action games, even on PC, I'm more comfortable with a controller. Yeah, I know some hardcore PC gamers are going to come and start flinging poo at me, but fortunately I was blessed with this I don't give a damn nature of mine, so whatever. I play it the way I want to play it, the way I enjoy playing it. Comes to playing Civilization and Diablo, I'm, keyboard and mouse all the way. But like Skyrim, all controller all day, baby. I know. Fling poo away. I don't care. So I think that's crap. All right, finish up with some good news. I know that was a little long, but that's not my controller confessional yet. All right, so it seems we are marching a little bit closer to a sequel to Psychonauts. Now, I know, it's been a long time since the first Psychonauts, and, we've never heard hide nor hair. It was a great, great game that didn't sell nearly as well as it probably should have. Well, Tim Schafer, guy behind Double Fine and Psychonauts, has been trying to shop publishers to get someone to invest in a Psychonauts 2, and no one is biting. Well, apparently he said something sort of out in the public, and he has an angel. Notch, the man behind Minecraft, came in and said, yeah, I would like to do this. And it was very public at first. Now they're in very private talks over, indeed, some sort of a publishing relationship. But we do have, just a few details. He came out and Tim Schafer said, well, $1 million isn't going to do it. The first Psychonauts had a development budget of around $13 million, and a sequel would have to at least match that to be as good, if not a better game. And I love Notch. His simple response was, yeah, I can do that. So it seems that the wild, rampant success of this little underground movement, Minecraft, that's become so huge, could in fact become a benefit for other wonderful, wonderful games. Like Psychonauts. So I just think this is a wonderful story, and it's fantastic to see things like this. A guy who obviously is passionate about games, really enjoyed the first Psychonauts, willing to put up his own money to fund a new Psychonauts. It's amazing. So, all right, enough with the news. Let's talk comics with the pull list. All right, as always every week, I do want to remind you to please stop by your local comic book store. It's an industry that really is struggling and could use all the help it can get. So go to your local comic book store, talk to your local comic book guru, get some other recommendations, and of course, pick up the books I'm about to recommend to you today. All right? First one is Birds of Prey #6. Now, I love this premise. So there's a guy running from a bunch of superhero women that are hunting him. But the thing is, they're hunting him to save his life from this really creepy dude who's been controlling his mind for like the last year. And it's sort of superheroes meets farce meets, hot, strong women. I mean, what more could you really ask for? And this is looking like it's going to be a standalone issue or maybe at least the beginning of a new arc. So great time to jump in on Birds of Prey. All right, next recommendation. BPRD Hell on Earth Long Death #1. Bit of a mouthful there, huh? Well, hey, you've heard of Mike Mignola, right? Yeah? No? Come on, he's the guy behind Hellboy. Hello, Mike Mignola. Big guy, big name, and BPRD. Right, okay. So he's coming back doing a BPRD, and that should be enough reason for you to jump on this title. But there's more. So there's this new task force that's been created to solve this series of mysteries. But in fact, the intrigue is really going to begin with the members of this task force. There's a lot of questioning of loyalties, and so it's just a lot of intrigue and drama, and of course, classic BPRD action. So it looks just really cool, really witty. Great to see Mike Mignola working on a BPRD title. It's good stuff. Good times. Jump in and grab it. All right, number 3, Road Rage #1. Now, you have heard me talk and spout forth my love of Joe Hill. Not like that. I love his work. He's the guy behind Lock and Key, the comic book series, that great trailer for the pilot that I showed you guys several months ago. He also writes some great books. Just great work. Well, he's now teaming up with his dad, Stephen King, the king of horror, in fact, on this new comic book called Road Rage, which is actually based on Richard Matheson's story Duel. It's about this gang of a biker gang that's being chased down by some enigmatic guy driving this evil-looking big rig. That sounds kind of goofy, but it's actually reading pretty cool. And you have these two just great authors, father and son, the king and prince of horror, teaming up to write this creepy adventure tale. And that's just awesome. So I tell you what, IDW really lucked out getting their hands on Joe Hill, and they must be treating him really well. He keeps providing with all this great content. All right, final recommendation, Witchblade 153. Now, come on. Sarah fights a coven of biker witches. It's like Sons of Anarchy meets The Craft. I mean, I shouldn't really have to say any more. I mean, that sounds crazy, but it reads really awesome. I got to check out a preview of it. It's wild. It's so weird. And plus, it's Witchblade, who's hot. Who doesn't like hot women? Really? I mean, new story arc. It's Witchblade on a bike. Go pick it up. Go buy it. Go read it. That's awesome. All right, enough with comics. I will once again say, though, please go to your local comic book store and support them and buy those wonderful, wonderful books. There's nothing like the smell of a new comic book, reading it and then slipping it gently into its bag and board. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. Okay, guys, finish up with Controller Confessional. Now, this will come as no shock to anyone, but it has been announced that the planned DLC, sequel, and multiplayer to Enslaved Odyssey to the West has been axed. Duh. I mean, this game came out a couple of years ago now. I love this game. The vast majority of critics really, really love this game, but it just didn't sell well. Now, this is what drives me nuts. Okay, creative director Tamim Antoniades, I'm hoping I'm not butchering his name too much behind the game, had this to say when he was interviewed by Edge magazine. He said, "We wanted to create affecting characters that felt more like real people than cardboard cutouts. If the game had been more successful, perhaps other games would follow suit and deem it a worthwhile pursuit. But perhaps instead it will be held as an example of why it just doesn't matter." This is crap. At least he's gone on to say that they will keep trying. They will keep trying to make these deep, affecting characters, even if they don't think it works. But here's the thing. Enslaved Odyssey of the West didn't sell poorly because it had deep, affecting characters. There are indeed a few other games that have deep, affecting characters, like Uncharted, and they sell well. Granted, there's not a whole lot. It's still a lot of cardboard cutout kind of characters. Poor marketing is why your game didn't sell well, okay? We heard about it at E3 the year before it came out, and then crickets, pretty much. There really wasn't nearly a big enough marketing push for this game. It's a fantastic game. Great combat, great everything in it I really enjoyed about this game. It just had its hooks in me, and like no other game before, they talk about deep affecting characters. The bond between Monkey and Trip was just so tight, so close that I felt that. I felt their bond develop as the game went forward. And of course I was hoping for a sequel. I'm not expecting one because the sales were so poor. But don't be confused that it was anything other than marketing. I have talked with professionals about this, men like Jesse Divinich, Michael Pachter, about why Enslaved didn't sell well, because the review scores were great. All us critics, news people were just raving about this game, but the general public didn't know about it. I mean, you look at games like Call of Duty. Call of Duty doesn't sell wild numbers on accident. And every year, even though they're already known, Call of Duty coming out every November, they still put out this huge marketing campaign to put it out there in the general public. You know, they get movie stars, they get professional athletes, they get everybody in these big, expensive commercials. And that's part of what drives their sales, and they know that. Now, could the guys behind Odyssey, you know, Enslaved, Odyssey of the West, afford a commercial like that? Probably not. But you've got to do something. You know, Skyrim had a huge marketing push. That makes a big difference. You go back to earlier, we were talking about Psychonauts. Same thing. This is a game that people really didn't hear about. It only was sort of an occult classic, an underground thing that critics raved about it, and people played it sort of, you know, it wasn't a big, well-known game, or we would have seen probably a sequel or two by now if it had sold properly. And so, you know, I'm glad they're not giving up on this whole making deep characters thing. I loved what they did with Enslaved, but realize that there's no lesson that should be learned there other than market your game better. It's not to say, you know, other game companies shouldn't do deep affecting characters. It's a good thing. It will help get your review scores up, which help drive your sales as well. Those are all good things. Keep doing that, but also put out some commercials. Put it in the public eye. You can't just assume that enough people are going to know about it because you're putting out press releases and telling the gaming press about it. You've got to do more. You've got to get the public attention, the low-hanging fruit. Okay, off my soapbox, done with Controller Confessional and this video. We'll see you next time.